Hey guys, I've been spending a lot of time lately checking out indie games, just seeing what my fellow developers have been cooking up. And honestly, I've come across some real gems. So in today's video, I'm gonna share with you 10 indie games that really stood out to me. Games that I think you should definitely check out too. Some of these games were made by solo developers, some took years to make, and others just came out of nowhere and made their devs multimillionaires overnight. Either way, they are all super inspiring, especially if you're into game development or just love seeing cool and creative ideas come to life. The first game I want to talk about is Schedule 1. I know you guys know all about it or heard of it or even played it by now. Everyone's talking about it, the streamers are on it, the TikToks are flooded with clips, and even the biggest critics are praising it. And rightly so. It's honestly kind of wild. This is a one-man game with basically no marketing budget, and it went on to hit almost 500,000 concurrent players, which is huge. Meanwhile, something like Assassin's Creed Shadows barely hit 65,000 players. And the craziest part is that this game cost only $10. It's basically a drug business management kind of game, but it gives you so much more. There's an actual cop system that's fun to deal with, a deep drug crafting system, full business management mechanics, shooting, and even how people react differently depending on the drugs they take. That's such a cool touch. You don't see that level of reactivity in most AAA games anymore. They're kind of losing their charm. As a game dev, it's just inspiring to see something this ambitious actually come to life, and that too inside of Unity. It's rough in some sports, sure, but the amount of systems packed into this thing for the price is just unreal. Then I'm gonna talk about Rooftops and Alleys, the parkour game. The name kinda says it all, but yeah, it's one of the best indie games that really got my attention. Again, this one's also developed by a solo dev named Michael, and I've actually been following him for a while now. It's great to see how far this game has come. For those who don't know, it's basically a parkour game where you get to run around different places like schools, parks, and so on, perform these crazy tricks, record yourself with slow-mo, and just have fun. There are also challenges, and tons of them in the game. And there's a fair bit of customization as well. It's not super crazy or anything since the game uses poly-style characters, but it is still great to have that choice. It's really addicting. Of course, you're not gonna play it for weeks straight, but for that short amount of time, it keeps you hooked like nothing else. And it's not just me, the Steam reviews says it all. It's sitting at a 10 out of 10 rating, which is absolutely wild. Then we have Blueprints, which is probably the most mind-bending yet addictive puzzle game I've played in a long time. It's a little hard to wrap your head around at first. It kinda really challenges you in ways you don't expect. I wasn't even aware of this game before it blew up, but once I started digging into it, I found out that it's been in development for over 8 years by a solo developer named Tonda Rose. And according to him, the inspiration behind it was actually an illustrated book called Maze Solve the World's Most Challenging Puzzle. To be honest, it took me a while to get into this game, but once it clicks, you start to realize just how brilliant it is. The whole game revolves around trying to find the hidden 46th room in a weird and ever-shifting mansion to secure your inheritance. If you don't reach it within a single in-game day, everything just resets. Simon has to start fresh the next day and the house's architecture changes again. It's such a unique experience and one of the games that, messes with your mind in the best way possible. Definitely worth playing. Now this next game is very close to me because I could really relate to its game development journey. It's called Grapples Galore, and it's a multiplayer shooting game built heavily around grappling mechanics. Funnily enough, the developer of Grapples Galore actually got inspired by an Attack of Titan fan game. And just like most of the games on this list, this one's also made by a solo dev who goes by the name Zotling. The game itself is pretty basic. The gameplay just revolves around grappling hook movements, some simple shooting, and small and straightforward maths. What surprised me though is that it took 4 years to finish. The development process started multiple times over the years, since Zotling started out from knowing nothing about the game development to learning the ins and outs of how it works. But for a free game, it's actually pretty amazing. I especially love the wobbly physics. It completely messes with your aim like more times than I could count, but in the most fun way possible. Alright, the next game I want to talk about is Dinkum or Dinkum. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's a cozy life simulation survival set in the Australian outbacks. And just like any other great survival life sim, you get to do all the good stuff like gathering resources, building structures, farming, mining, fishing, making friends, and so much more. What's interesting is that this one's also made by a solo dev, James Bemden, who started working on it all the way back in 2017. Dencom was released in early access in 2022, and after 3 years, it finally launched as version 1 in 2025. Since then, it has gained quite a bit of traction, averaging around 5,000 players daily with very positive Steam reviews. To be honest, the game looks pretty cute, and most people would probably be sold on the visuals alone. Then we have Spilled. I'm not sure if you heard about this one, but I'm a big fan, and for good reasons. Spilled is a cleaning sim kind of game where your only goal is to clean up the ocean. That means taking out the trash from the water, sweeping oil spills, collecting valuables, and even extinguishing fires on the shore. It's a super short game, but the gameplay is really addicting and honestly super relaxing as well. You're not fighting monsters out there or going on mission impossibles. You're just cleaning up, earning some cash, upgrading your ship, and having fun. Spell doesn't have a massive player base either, but it's honestly impressive how far it's come. What started out as a simple school project by a solo dev ended up raising 32,000 euros on Kickstarter and is now one of the more meaningful indie games out there on Steam. What's really inspirational about this game is that Lente, the girl who developed it, was actually living on an actual board herself while making it. You can check out her whole journey on YouTube. I'll leave a link to it down in the description. Speaking of games with low player count, but exceptionally great gameplay and story, we also got Duck Detective: The Secret of Glamping. It's a casual detective game where you play as a depressed duck on a mission to solve a murder mystery. The first thing that caught my attention was the cute visuals. It's like reading a cartoon novel, but one you can actually control. You'll be talking to random characters, gathering clues, and then cleverly piecing them together to make sense of the whole situation. Like noticing how someone's sweating, how they are trembling, small stuff like that. The puzzles are extremely clever, but they never feel overwhelming. And that's exactly what makes this game so great. And it's not just me. Duck Detective has over 90% positive reviews on Steam right now. What's especially cool to me is that this game was also made inside of Unity, which just makes me happy to see how creative devs can get with this engine. The next game isn't as big as the rest on this list, but it's one that I've been following through Reddit posts, and it caught my attention because of its cute pixelated look. It kinda reminded me of Stardew Valley, but once I looked into it more, I realized it was something different. It's more like a mix of Terraria and Stardew, with a super satisfying gameplay loop that can have you hooked for hours. It comes from a small YouTuber like me named Cord Manu or Manu, who worked solo on the game for about 2 to 3 years. And honestly, I think it deserves way more attention, especially from players who love life sims or just enjoy games with cozy pixel art vibe. Tinkerlands is still in early access, so yeah, there's plenty of room for improvement. But I really think it's gonna get there, especially since the devs been actively engaging with the community and fixing all sorts of issues that players bring up. Then we have Despelote, which is probably one of the most relatable games on this list, especially if you're into football. It's a slice of life adventure that follows a kid who absolutely adores football. The game tells his story as he dribbles, passes, and kicks the ball around the streets of Ecuador. You'll get into trouble with the people along the way, disturbing them as you play. Some of the conversations are light and funny, the others are a bit more serious, but all of them feel genuine. And that's the beauty of this game, the lifelike interactions with the people around you. Despelote was developed by two friends, Julian and Sebastian, who dropped the first trailer back in 2023. It finally released in May of 2025, and it's already won several awards, including Excellence in Audio at the Independent Games Festival. I would say it's a must-play. The way it captures childhood and the love of football is honestly a narrative masterpiece. The last indie game was kind of an instant hit when it came out earlier this year. I'm talking about The Headliners, which is a super unique co-op horror game, but instead of survivalist, you actually play as journalists, trying to capture viral moments during an alien invasion. And it gets even more fun when you realize you can team up with up to 7 players, each doing their own crazy thing. But the first thing that popped into my mind was, who even came up with this idea? So I dug around a little bit and found this interview with one of the devs from this tiny indie studio called Coffee. And yeah, the idea was just as you would expect. They basically thought, wouldn't it be fun if the players could record these chaotic viral moments we always laugh about, but instead inside a game? And of course, it went viral because it taps straight into what teens love to do. Within just 3 days of its release, the game hit over 6,000 concurrent players, which is a huge milestone for any indie game with a small budget and even smaller team. Alright, let me know which indie game you liked the most, and I'm sure you've got a bunch of favorites of your own too. So drop them down in the comments for others to check out as well. Maybe your recommendation ends up in someone else's playlist. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.